All right, awesome. The last time the Fulcrum held debates, it was over Zoom, so clearly there were way less technical difficulties. We're so lucky to be able to be in person to have vibrant discussion. Apologies for the delay that's caused. That's on me. And we're going to head back into where we were. We're going to give Delph a minute to finish what she was saying, and then we're going to get into debate on this final question before going into questions from the audience. So if you want to ask one of those, get them in now. Thank you.
All right, since it's been a minute, we are going to ask the question again. So, as the main media spokesperson for the union, how do you intend to make yourself available for comments to the student media? Please answer this question in French. Delphine?
Donc, comment comptes-tu entretenir les relations avec les médias et plus spécifiquement avec les journaux étudiants du campus? À toi.
Thanks, Bridget, for giving Delph a minute. Comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, je vais d'abord commencer par remercier nos médias étudiants qui, même après l'adoption de la loi C-18, travaillent fort pour amener du bon journalisme, du journalisme de qualité aux étudiants du campus. Donc, merci, bravo. Par rapport à comment je me rendrais accessible aux médias étudiants, je pense qu'un gros problème qui existait l'année dernière était que constitutionnellement, le président est donc l'autorité médiatique. Cependant, mon approche personnellement est que je fais confiance à l'équipe exécutive que les étudiants ont élus. Je fais confiance au fait qu'ils connaissent leur portfolio mieux que personne d'autre. Et donc, sous mon leadership, les médias étudiants n'auraient pas besoin de passer par moi pour poser des questions, demander des informations, demander des réactions ou commentaires aux différents membres de l'équipe exécutive. Je prévois aussi avoir des heures de bureau plus longues et plus fréquentes auxquelles les médias seraient spécifiquement invités, qui auraient lieu chaque semaine. Donc, merci.
All right, now we will move to a 3-minute debate.
Merci. En fait, j'étais curieuse, j'imagine, par rapport à ta vision de est-ce que tu penses que le président devrait recevoir toutes les demandes médiatiques et s'en occuper, ou comment est-ce que toi tu vois ça?
Je pense pour les questions générales, oui, le président a besoin d'être la voix de syndicat. Pardon?
Is it green or red?
Green.
Word?
Tap it.
It's not word.
You want to try?
Yeah, just use first.
Would you use my mic?
I know.
Do you want to use mine?
Yeah, just use.
Yeah, sure.
Here we go. Okay, Ryan.
I did that on purpose. No. Je pense pour les questions générales, c'est important pour le président d'être la voix de le syndicat. Mais quand les questions de médias est un peu plus spécifiques, c'est important pour les exécutifs d'être. C'est important que les exécutifs aient la façon de parler et non pas silencieux. Alors, oui, c'est ma réponse à la question. Vous?
Ben, j'ai donné ma réponse durant mon introduction, mais merci d'avoir répondu. J'ai pas d'autres questions.
That's it. All right. Thank you. Now we will move on to the 10-minute open question period.
On va commencer avec la période des questions. Donc, celle-ci est adressée à Ryan. Donc, si possible, comment envisagez-vous de réduire les salaires et de supprimer des emplois tout en demandant plus de travail aux gens, par exemple en offrant une meilleure communication sur les plateformes?
For Ryan, how do you plan to cut wages and cut jobs while also asking for more work from people? For example, offering better communication on platforms.
So, in terms of that, it's obviously it's going to be difficult.
Use her mic.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we have a shared mic now. Let's
That's
just
fine. Yeah.
toss in
Do it
the
in the middle.
Let's,
It's so lovely, isn't it?
yeah, teamwork.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a difficult ask, and of course I'm not happy about it. I'm not saying, oh, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna cut everything and expect everyone to do the same work. I'm hoping this referendum doesn't pass. At the end of the day, though, you have to live life with the hands you're dealt. If the students want less money going towards the union, then they're gonna have to deal with the hit that comes with that. In terms of wages, of course, we're gonna have to look at the places where we can first off cut wages, not fire people, but potentially reduce pay. I know personally I would be willing to take, I'm not speaking for all executives, but for myself, I'd be willing to take a pay cut. But then from there, we'll kind of look at who is being the most effective, where wages could potentially be cut down, where labor is a little bit too high compared to the money that's coming in or the money's being spent. and kind of just go from there. It's a hard thing to do, but at the end of the day, it's something that would have to be done.
Can I talk to that? Yes, you have 30 seconds. Thanks. I just wanted to say that while that sounds like a good idea in theory, in practice, our employees are unionized. We have a collective agreement with them, and we can't go around cutting wages. Yeah, that's not how it works, but thanks.
All right, we move on to our next question. Part of being a president is pragmatism. Are you ready to concede on some of your platform for the greater good of students?
Donc, le pragmatisme fait partie de la fonction du président. Êtes-vous prêt à céder sur certains points de votre programme pour le plus grand bien des étudiants? Vous êtes encouragé à répondre en français.
Certainement. Autant je pense que c'est à l'université, c'est le moment d'être idéaliste, c'est le moment de rêver grand et d'avoir des grandes idées. Je pense qu'évidemment, le bien-être collectif passe avant tout. Et donc, si certaines idées auraient des répercussions négatives sur les étudiants, sur la situation financière du syndicat ou sur la situation des étudiants, tout à fait, je serais prête à reconsidérer mes idées. La majorité de mes idées ont été élaborées en consultation avec différents groupes sur le campus. Et donc, j'ai déjà l'impression qu'il va y avoir une bonne accessibilité sociale. Et donc, je pense que continuer cette collaboration et continuer cette consultation va être primordial quand il a trait au pragmatisme. Merci.
Oui, oui, c'est impossible de faire tout que je veux dans une année. Alors, il y a quelque chose que je ne peux pas faire dans cette année. Mais beaucoup de les choses que je veux faire est administrative. Alors, je pense que ça va être un peu plus facile de faire. Mais oui, si les choses se passent qui ferment mes idées pas possibles, ou si quelqu'un parlait avec moi et une de mon idée est une mauvaise idée, je vais dire que nous n'avons pas faire ça. Ouais, merci.
All right, we move on to our next question. What is your favorite platform point from your opponent?
Donc, quelle est la promesse de campagne que vous aimez le plus dans la plateforme électorale de votre adversaire?
I can start.
I can whatever you want.
I'll start.
Sure.
Despite the criticisms I gave to it, I do think the on-campus grocery store that Delphine has brought up is a great idea. And I think in the long term, and I'm talking very long term, like within 10 years, not 2, 3, 5, that is a feasible idea that could be implemented. However, there are a lot of hurdles in the way, and I think that putting it kind of as a priority, especially for this election, is, well, not, sorry, I'm getting partisan here. It's a great idea. It should happen at some point. Sorry.
Well, thanks, Ryan. And there is a reason why I put it in the long-term section of the platform. There's a lot of things that I appreciate about Ryan's platform, specifically regarding financial transparency. I think the idea of making sure that we budget enough hours for accountants to make sure that we get our financial reports up in a timely manner is a wise one. Absolutely. So, thanks.
Super. Donc, la prochaine question, c'est quel est votre plan pour promouvoir le bilinguisme sur le campus?
What is your plan for promoting bilingualism on campus? Please answer in French.
Certainement, merci pour la question. Comme je l'ai dit dans mes remarques d'introduction, le bilinguisme, c'est quelque chose qui me tient beaucoup à cœur. En tant que francophone, je dois dire que j'ai l'impression d'avoir perdu beaucoup d'espace francophone et d'opportunités de me sentir connectée au français quand j'ai déménagé à Ottawa. C'est une chose d'avoir une institution qui est bilingue sur papier, mais c'est une chose d'avoir c'en est une autre d'avoir une institution qui est réellement bilingue. Et donc, j'aimerais un peu mener par l'exemple, lead by example, en étant justement un président dont la première langue est le français, m'assurer qu'avec les exécutifs, avec les bénévoles, avec les employés du syndicat, qui se sont tout aussi confortables de parler en français qu'en anglais. Après, à l'extérieur du syndicat, j'ai pu parler avec plusieurs groupes francophones durant l'élaboration de ma campagne, comme l'Association des étudiants du département de français et des individus qui sont très impliqués dans le bilinguisme. Et certaines des idées qui sont ressorties inclut plus de soutien pour les publications étudiantes, spécifiquement les publications étudiantes francophones, que ce soit des publications étudiantes à vocation scientifique, à vocation artistique, à vocation littéraire, parce que c'est des manières très concrètes de promouvoir l'écriture francophone. Et c'est une de mes passions d'ailleurs, la littérature, l'écriture. Donc, c'est un projet que j'aimerais prendre en charge avec le commissaire aux affaires francophones.
Oui, je pense que la chose que Delphine a dit à propos de l'organisation qui est bilingue dans le nom mais pas en pratique est vrai. Comme il y a beaucoup d'organisations qui parlent seulement en anglais, et ce n'est pas l'université que nous voulons. Je pense que nous avons besoin de faire plus de les règles et les limites à propos de les conversations en anglais ou les choses comme ça. Nous avons besoin de aussi faire une culture de intégration. Maintenant, les francophones étudiants et les étudiants anglophones sont très divisés. Mais je pense que c'est important pour l'union nouveau, si c'est l'union de Delphes ou de moi, de faire un environnement qui est bon pour les étudiants anglophones et francophones ensemble, pas juste anglophones et francophones séparés. Merci.
Thank you. The next question. What are the best and worst sections of the UOSU Constitution?
Donc, quelle est la meilleure et la pire partie de la Constitution du CU?
I can start. Okay, go ahead. So I think what I really like about the UO Constitution is the accessibility sections, making sure every student is able to be involved, making sure every student, regardless of language, regardless of physical state, mental state, we have a purview there. They're allowed in the meetings, we have to accommodate them in the meetings, and that's something I really like about it. What I don't like, it's not very specific, but it's a very bureaucratic document. There's a lot of channels to go through, and I think that really stops the union from being able to do things that it needs to get done. And I think that's something, again, long term, because that's not something, changing the Constitution dramatically is not something that can be done in the short term, but long term, maybe flagging some things that could potentially be changed to speed up processes and speed up action is something that needs to be done.
Yeah, I think my least favorite part of the Constitution is a part that doesn't exist and that I believe should. When it comes to referendum questions, we've had more referendum questions than ever in this election, and I think that was a pretty tedious process with the fact that students didn't have any guidelines on what a referendum question was, how to submit a referendum question, what's the kind of support or number of signatures that you should garner in order to present a referendum question that is pertinent and that has weight. So that's something that I'd love to see added. I know it's something that's probably going to be worked on by the Elections Committee. So I'd love to have a more streamlined process when it comes to referendum question, because they're a great way for students to express their opinions in how the union should be run. When it comes to my favorite section, I think, honestly, the section on committees. I think committees are underrated. I think committees have immense value. For those who don't know, a committee is basically like a subdivision of the board of directors itself. So a few people, executives, directors, will sit on a committee that has a specific purpose. So for example, advocacy committee, equity committee, etc. So I think I just love committees. I think they're a really great way to get more work done quicker, and to have kind of a think tank before going back to the main board. So that collaborative aspect is something that I really enjoy.
Excellent. Dans quelle mesure pensez-vous qu'en tant que président, vous aurez un impact sur l'efficacité de la gouvernance au niveau du conseil d'administration, étant donné que votre vote et votre voix sont égaux à ceux de tous les autres?
How do you feel that as president, you will have an impact on the efficiency of governance at the board level, given that your vote and voice is even to everybody else's?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think that's a great question. One of the fundamental things about the board is that we don't operate on a first amongst equals basis. Like, executives really do only have the one vote. So I think improving on the improving governance standpoint, governance is all I did for the board for the last months as chair. I think there is immense value in knowing how corporate governance works, knowing how a not-for-profit organization works, knowing the specificities that comes with that. And so I think that, to me, this is a logical continuation of the work that I've already been doing as chair of the board of directors. I've acquired the knowledge and the skills to make our governance more efficient, and I think that's our, we've already seen results, I think, from that. And so I look forward to continuing to build up on that.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, the president, in terms of actual power, same as any other executive, it's one vote. But in terms of dynamics and everything, the president has to be a leader. The president has to put forward a plan to kind of get things going, to talk with the people, the executive board, and with students, to try and get a sense of where we want things headed. We don't want to be just throwing motions in a void of just things to do willy-nilly. Having a set plan, having a goal and a direction we want to go into to kind of work together on the best way to achieve those goals rather than just, picking different things to do for the sake of doing them is something that I would, number one, prioritize. Having a clear plan within the short term, the long term, and the long term, setting out actual goals and making students aware of them. And then as well as showing how the executives are going about that so students are aware in the future of if they're seeing an executive of a certain section of the executive committee, not necessarily getting through their goals very quickly, they're able to look at that, and if they decide to move forward or if they know that position needs to be improved upon, they can vote on that in the next election cycle. Thank you. That's the sense.
I guess I'd just like to ask my opponent what governance means to him specifically. I felt like I was trying to find some elements of, how governance comes into play as more than leadership. So I was just wondering if you'd like to maybe touch on that.
Governance for me is the way things operate. It's the way the union is governed. And as you said, as chair of the board, you were a big part of that, and the future chair is going to be a big board. So working in terms of the functions of governance is going to be something that the president is going to have to do, and I'm going to have to do with the future chair. At the end of the day, you can't have good governance if you don't have good leadership. They kind of go hand in hand. Without a plan, governance, you can govern something, but if there's no direction for it, it's kind of just going around. You want something straight, especially for a corporation that's this important and with this many students who rely on it.
Thanks.
All right. This is the last question from the audience. How do each of the candidates think they could lead a team they are entering when that team has been partially working together for 5 months?
Donc, comment chacun des candidats, comment vous pensez pouvoir diriger une équipe dont vous intégrez qui a travaillé partiellement ensemble pendant 5 mois?
Well, I like to think that I already know the team, pretty well, given my role as board chair. However, I think my leadership style is something, and there's this concept, some of you may know, it's called servant leadership, meaning that you're not going into an organization with the goal of, changing everything within the team. You're going into the organization with the role of asking people, what do you need from me and what do you want from me? And then meeting those expectations. So I have complete confidence in the executives that the students have elected and will elect in this by-election to have, to do their thing, essentially. And I think that as president, my role would be to come in and not chambouler les dynamiques in French, mais plutôt d'être un soutien, donc de dire, OK, qu'est-ce qui va pas, avec quoi est-ce que je peux aider, quelles failles est-ce qu'ils existent et comment est-ce que je peux remplir cette faille-là. So I think to me the role of president is not about coming in and having ultimate power. It's about being a friend for the executive team truly and doing what needs to be done on their terms as well.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I'm at a bit of a disadvantage on this one. I'm not very close with many of the members of the board. I am an outsider coming in and trying to shake things up. But I'm not trying to come about this in a way that's like a hostile takeover. New manager is imported in from another branch and changes how everything's run. Just like Delphine is talking about, it's about talking with people, finding out where their goals are, and then setting out a plan from there. I think where our goals might misalign or where our visions misalign is at the end of the day, my entire platform, my thoughts, my loyalty is 100% to the students. And the fact that I don't have any interpersonal relationships within the board, I think makes me a better person to be able to serve that, since my interests are solely towards the people that are voting and the people who are affected by the programs. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Now we move on to the closing remarks. Candidates will each have 1 minute to speak. We will start with Ryan.
C'est le temps des commentaires de conclusion, donc nous commencerons par Ryan.
Okay. I hope that everybody learned a little bit more about all the platforms today, and at the end of the day, I hope everybody knows who they're willing to vote for. Regardless of anything, voting is a positive thing. Either way, of course, I want to win, but I'm sure Delphine will do an incredible job regardless, even though we disagree on a few things. At the end of the day, what's important is unified student government and making sure things are moving forward and not stagnating.
Thanks, Ryan, for the kind words, and I'd like to say the same. Thank you for putting your name forward. It's a very brave and vulnerable thing to do. I guess what I'd like to say is that, sorry. I think that if there's a time for bold and big ideas and initiatives, it's now. We have a union that is young, which means that there's a lot of things to be solidified, but it's also a major positive because it means that it's flexible, that there is room for growth and room for change. And that is the kind of union that I want to see, one, once, like my opponent said, that does not stagnate. And I think that we're in an ideal position to make that happen. And like Ryan said, I encourage everyone to vote, no matter who you vote for. This is an organization that represents you and is funded from your student fees. So I really encourage you to make your voice heard when it comes to candidates and referendum questions. And once again, I'd like to thank La Rotonde and the Fulcrum for putting this on. Thanks.
Thank you, candidates, for your remarks. The voting period is open until this Friday, October 13th at 11:59 p.m. All undergraduate students at the University of Ottawa are eligible to vote for UOSU's executive and for the respective faculty's candidates for UOSU's Board of Directors. These terms end in April, and a new executive and Board of Directors will be elected in a general election in March.
Merci pour vos commentaires de conclusion. Donc, la période de vote est ouverte jusqu'au vendredi 13 octobre à 23h59. Tous les étudiants de premier cycle de l'Université d'Ottawa pourront voter pour les membres exécutifs du CEO et pour les candidats de leur faculté au conseil d'administration du CEO. Donc, ces mandats prennent fin en avril et un nouvel exécutif et conseil d'administration seront élus lors d'une élection générale en mars.